naturally, as parents, out of love, we want to do this perfectly, but we can't. And many times it's based off of a performance, am I good enough type of drive that you're comparing to other parents, and somehow there's that insecurity that you're trying to resolve. And relationship is messy. Whenever there's imperfection, there's opportunity for love, there's opportunity for grace, there's opportunity for some amazing things, forgiveness, opportunity for growth. If you have the illusion of wanting perfection, you're robbing the relationship of some tremendous gifts.
Welcome to Homeschool Talks, a podcast by HSLDA. This is a show about all things homeschooling, from practical tips to inspiring stories and everything in between. You can find show notes for this episode along with our other Homeschool Talks conversations at hslda.org/podcast. And if you want to be the first to know about new episodes, as well as upcoming guests and topics, sign up for our email list using the link in the show notes. We're so glad you've joined us today, and we hope you enjoyed the program. Here's your host, Jim Mason.
Hi, I'm Jim Mason, president of Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and this is another episode of Homeschool Talks, and I'm talking today with Dr. Daniel Huerta. He is the Focus on the Family Vice President of Parenting and Youth. He's a bilingual licensed clinical social worker who has counseled families for more than 2 decades. Most of those 2 decades have been with Focus on the Family. Welcome, Danny.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show, Jim. It's good to be with you.
So we're going to get around to talking about some of your work in helping parents, and but I wanted to begin today. We'll get around to the 7 traits of effective parenting, but we happen to be recording this today on the day we learned that the founder of Focus on the Family, Dr. James Dobson, has passed away. And I thought we'd take a minute to kind of reflect on his life and his work there at Focus on the Family. And I understand you crossed some of your time was before he left Focus.
Well, even when I was in school, Jim, I was junior high-ish. I remember driving. My mom was driving us to school. She was a teacher at Colorado Springs Christian School, and she said, "Hey guys, we're going to listen to 100.7." And here was Dr. Dobson was coming on, and well, I remember her turning it on. I go, "Mom, what? We're going to listen to talk radio on the way to school. I'm already have teachers, and I'm going to pass out on the way to school. Can we listen to music?" And in that time, though, I gleaned a lot of great content on marriage and parenting. And my parents had great respect for Dobson. And I remember them moving to Colorado Springs in 1991. They moved offices from Pomona into the Springs. And that was the time when I was in high school, and several people from our high school worked at Focus on the Family. And one day they 93 is when I graduated. And then several people said, "Why don't you come and work at Focus?" I said, "Oh no, I'll never work at Focus on the Family. I'm thinking international business and all these types of things." And I remember saying that to some friends. "No, that's good. I like Focus on the Family. I'll never work there." I ended up starting in 2004. Got to meet Dr. Dobson and Shirley and Ryan and Danae. I didn't get to meet, but I met Ryan. Worked with him some, and with Jim and Shirley, I saw them off and on from 2004 to 2010. And then as a counseling team, I joined the counseling team here at Focus on the Family. We got to pray for them as they left Focus on the Family, and got to, in a very intimate way, talk through the next chapter, the next adventure he was going on, and just as almost a grandfather at the time, just his anticipation of what God had for him next. And it was an honor, privilege to be able to have worked under his leadership here at Focus on the Family, and then also being able to pray for him for those next things God had for him. He did a great job of launching Focus on the Family and obeying the call that God had on his life.
Well, Danny, you may or may not know that Dr. Dobson had a huge effect on the early stages of the homeschool movement. There are legendary stories. So HSLDA was founded in 1983 by 2 dads, Mike Smith and Mike Ferris. And both of them, so back in 1981, on the radio broadcast, Dr. Dobson had Dr. Raymond Moore, who was talking about early education and how maybe putting kids, 5-year-olds in a classroom wasn't such a good idea. And he was kind of an early proponent of holding kids out of school and teaching them at home. And that very
it was radical at that time.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
kind of not heard of. I mean, it was there were some hippies and John Holt followers and a few brave souls, but that radio broadcast was heard by one of our founders, Mike Smith himself, and Mike Ferris's wife heard that broadcast. And then later, Mike Ferris met Dr. Dobson or met Raymond Moore at a conference, went back and talked to his wife, and his wife had been praying ever since she'd heard the radio broadcast. And that radio broadcast has kind of gone down into, it's become sort of legendary in early homeschooling circles. And then Dr. Dobson himself became a huge proponent of home education, especially for Christian families discipling children. Mike Ferris, our chairman, our current chairman and founder, was on the show many times and became close friends. Dr. Dobson also was instrumental way back in the old days, before you had the supercomputer in your pocket. You had to do things really, this is the way it was done my whole life growing up, but there was a bill introduced in Congress that would have required every teacher in America to be certified by the state. And it came to the attention of HSLDA in 1994. And we raised an alarm, but you had to do it by snail mail and, phone trees. There was really very limited ways to get that kind of word out quickly because it was coming up for a vote in Congress. And James Dobson invited Mike Ferris to record a show on Friday, which aired on Monday. And the volume of calls to Capitol Hill went from, thousands to millions. And so this bill that was making its way through, infamous H.R. 6 of 1994, went from, and remember this was both houses of Congress were controlled by the Democrats with a Democratic president. And this bill was sailing through, and it went down to defeat by a vote of 400-something to 1 after we got involved, but most importantly, getting the word out on the radio station, the radio broadcast of James Dobson. So he has spoken at several of our national conferences over the years, and he holds he's a very special place in our hearts in homeschooling world.
I can see why. Yeah. He a proponent to that, and also took a lot of heat in the 80s and 90s. I know for advocating for that, but was a man of God and pursued truth and stood up for what he felt conviction on, and admired the way he did that. And one of the things was, I remember that, homeschooling for sure.
Well, Danny, what's your background as far as homeschooling goes?
Well, so I was actually a school social worker in a Title I school district here in Colorado Springs when I got the call from Focus on the Family. They invited me to join their counseling team. And at the time, I wasn't looking for a new job, but then got to join an amazing team of counselors here. And I was a new dad. I had a 2-year-old and a 1-year, just a newborn right at that time, and just beginning to see the landscape of what that all was going to look like. We found an amazing classical education charter school here. Had we not had that, we would have been homeschooling. And there was one time where we did a hybrid homeschool setup between a Christian school and homeschooling for our daughter in 11th grade, her junior year, because she'd been diagnosed with ADHD after severe concussion, and was having a hard time with the learning side of things, and needed us to. My wife was a high school teacher when I met her, and stayed at home with the kids and would help them when they got home from school with their schoolwork, and so this was a great setup for her during the junior year. And then we found this incredible school. Actually, that was the end of sophomore year. We found an incredible school right in front of Focus on the Family that was just for juniors and seniors, and it was a lot of Christian ex Air Force Academy professors, and it was just junior, senior, small class size. It was a perfect setup for her as she prepared for college, and now she's at College of the Ozarks. We're so excited for her to continue to pursue what God has for her. And our son excelled in that classical education side of things. On my side, I've worked with a tremendous amount of families the last 2 decades through my private practice, counseling them, working through family issues, educational learning issues, and then mental health, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, family conflict, a variety of things with homeschool families, and then have gotten to speak at many, many conventions for the last 8 years or so, and absolutely love the conventions. I get to see families in action and get to spend those weekends with them, talking through their specific situations and giving them practical tools as they lead their kids towards a thriving faith in Christ.
So you're carrying on the tradition of Dr. Jim Dobson, who wrote many books that parents referred to for raising children. And you've written this book, 7 Traits of Effective Parenting. I wanted to start with, I found your introduction to chapter 1, or the concepts that you introduced in chapter 1, the idea of contributors, encouragers, and influencers. Expand on that for me, would you?
Yeah, we all have them. We've had contributors, or people that have invested time in us. I remember having coaches and a variety of people that took a moment in their time, in their lives, took big investments of time and poured them into my life. And recognizing those is so important for us to recognize those, and then help our kids recognize those. Those help shape who we are as parents. Encouragers are people that have built us with their words, have been life-giving with words, encouraging us as we pursue our calling, as we pursue our interests, our desires, our challenges, all those things. We've all had encouragers. These are the rolling credits of our life. And then the other ones, the ones that participate in a way of influence. So those people that you've admired, that have been those people that you just look at and go, man, I admire what they're doing, but then they take the time to mentor us. And those, we all have mentors in our lives, and those are the people that have had influence in our lives, including our own parents. And all those rolling credits, and usually in movies we have about 9 minutes of rolling credits. All those rolling credits in our life have contributed to who we are today. And do we operate off of gratitude with that? And then do we also recognize the ones that have been opposites? So we have investors, but we also have people that have taken away. They're consumers within our life. We have people that have been discouraging instead of encouraging. And then we have people that have been kind of distracting to us instead of influential. And we need to recognize those as well, and have them be a part of our story. And then deciding as a parent, what is it that I want to do? What do I want to accomplish as a mom or a dad as I'm raising the one child, the 9 kids? I know with homeschool families, it's 5+ many times. I had one recently. I spoke at an event, and I had a giveaway, and there were 3 families within that workshop that had more than 11 kids in their home. And man, what a beautiful, beautiful picture of being fruitful and what God has told us to do, to have multiple kids. So that's really, when you look at those rolling credits, Jim, it's about recognizing the people that have had influence in our lives, whether good or bad, and then seeing how that's impacting who we are today.
So I gather that this book has been influenced a lot by your own practice helping families in what's the most important trait of the seven? Or you want to go through the seven and let's talk about the most important?
Yeah, that sounds good. And one thing I want to say, I remember leaving when I left the school, Jim, when I left the public school system, and I told them I'm going to focus on the family. They said, that is crazy. Why would you go to a place like that? Why would you go to such a hateful place? I mean, it was over and over again. People were saying, you're making a mistake. Why would you go to a place like that? And I'm so thankful God brought me here. And a year after I left, several of the psychologists, counselors, social workers said, man, you left at just the right time. Because then there were some changes in the district. They were unhappy. Things were not going well. And they were able to see a picture of how God can guide a person that's obedient to his calling, and how he guides them in different places. So they said, hey, you were right. And so anyway, what I want to say is with 7 traits, first one starts with adaptability. Adaptability. How do we adapt to the world around us, the different personalities of our kids, the different scenarios or different energy levels? How are we adapting to what is happening in front of us? Then it goes to respect. Then, and that's how are we adjusting our inside. So those first 2 are about the invitation of parent-child relationship. Then the next 3 are about the momentum we're creating. It's intentionality. That's how are you guiding the relationship? Then steadfast love. And then, so how are you maintaining a steadfastness in your love when your kids are misbehaving or having difficulty? And then how are you setting boundaries and limits? That's the 5th of the traits. The 6th one, and I had to combine them when I did the research and I did the dissertation, they couldn't be separated. It was grace and forgiveness together. And then the final one is gratitude. And gratitude helps create an adaptive mind. It helps reset the mind. And now you have adaptability again. So those 7 were intentionally put in that order. And it's based off of the research on the authoritative parenting style, which is a balance of high levels of warmth and sensitivity and high levels of expectation and guidance for our kids. And the toughest one for parents are the boundaries and limits. Just because you have a mom and a dad with different experiences, different relationships, different upbringing, different personalities, and they're trying to guide together with a common thread on what those boundaries and limits are going to be. And usually 2 very different people marry each other, and one of them is usually the more about the rules and this is how it's going to be, and the other one's more about the relationship and let's be warm, and they try to balance each other, and that can actually work against you as parents. You both need to work on having high levels of both. And so that one, when parents take the assessment, and we have a free assessment, you can find that actually at focusonthefamily.com/7 traits assessment. It's free. It gives you, here are your 2 strengths and here are your 2 opportunities for growth. The other opportunity for growth one that parents tend to have is that adaptability. Just because of different personalities, there are certain personalities that have a hard time having that flexibility of mind, what people call psychological flexibility. And that means allowing for your emotions to be there, but you adjusting your mind enough to figure out what's the best thing for this particular child in this particular moment, regardless of the momentums of where my emotions are at. And parents admit a lot of times they're in a hurry, their emotions are high, or they're close to burnout, and they just react to a child. And they've said, hey, you're not gonna be able to drive for the next year. You're losing your privilege to the phone for the next 2 months, and then they have to detract that because they haven't adapted to what's happening and taken the time to understand and listen to what is happening. So those 2 are the main ones that parents tend to struggle with, both moms and dads.
I want to read you something from your book, both towards the beginning and then also in the boundary section. So I'll read these 2 quotes and let you reflect on them. Unfortunately, though, many parents strive too hard for perfection, somehow thinking that perfect parenting is a destination, that we win if we are perfect or have well-behaved kids. That described me in my early homeschool adventure because this happened a lot to us in our early days with our first we had kind of two mobs. The first mob was three, and then the second mob was we had a foursome that followed after a long break. You go to a restaurant, they were very well behaved, and people would come up to us and say, "Wow, what well behaved children!" And we kind of basked in that glow. And then we had four more, and things changed a little bit. So that sort of mythical goal of being the perfect parent. And then back in the section that I spent the most time in, the boundary section, which that may be because that's where I struggled. But you wrote, setting healthy boundaries requires discernment, wisdom, courage, and most importantly is my words, relationship. And so that from the striving to be the perfect parent, raising the perfect kids, to establishing boundaries based on relationship.
Man, yeah, love that. Love that you went there. Naturally, as parents, out of love, we want to do this perfectly, but we can't. And many times it's based off of a performance, am I good enough type of drive that you're comparing to other parents, and somehow there's that insecurity that you're trying to resolve. And that can be so damaging. A child will pick up on that over time. And relationship is messy. Whenever there's imperfection, there's opportunity for love, there's opportunity for grace, there's opportunity for some amazing things, forgiveness, opportunity for growth. And so if you're perfect, you're robbing, or if you have the illusion of wanting perfection, you're robbing the relationship of some tremendous gifts, including love and growth, which are so important for us developmentally. And I love to think about child development. It's not child perfection, it's child. There's a developing factor to a child and a developing factor to a parent. And so with parents, what I've noticed on the perfection side, it's based off of either old information they've received from their parents, where they perfection equates love, and those don't go together, but that's how they thought they needed to perform in order to receive love. And so there's healing that needs to take place there. And then the other one is this natural setup now in social media that if parents go on social media, and I discourage them to do so, on comparing with one another, that, hey, this parent did that, man, I'm not doing enough. And it triggers that natural human trait of, I'm just not doing enough. And parents are doing the best they can with what they have, and I encourage them to look at that. What are you bringing the best you can with what you've got? And that's what you get to bring. And then with that, you get to guide your kids, you get to have a relationship with them. And a big one that you can give your kids is the investment of time and the investment of your attention. That is hard in homeschooling, because you've got so many things grabbing for your attention. You have multiple kids that are needing your attention, your guidance. Then you've got the chores of the house that are right there in front of you. You've got laundry, you've got food that needs to be cooked. You've got all kinds of chores where the house is also demanding your attention. So you've got to be very intentional. That's where the intentionality comes in, of how you're going to invest that time to have a relationship. And a big one for kids that they need to have is for you to know who they are. And I encourage parents to think about the different temperaments. And one child may need affection, while the other one may need more of an intellectual conversation where you're present with them, listening to their thoughts and their ideas. And another child may just need that hug where you say, man, I love you. And two different ways to show love to your kids. So knowing that makes a big difference. And then knowing developmentally that teens have this desire for belonging. And with homeschool kids, and I've heard this with homeschool families, there's this angst of, what if my teen has a lot of friends outside of the home, what is going to happen to my teen? Just know they have this desire to go from known at 12 years old, and they have an attunement brain-wise to the parent voice before 12 years old. It shifts after that around puberty. The brain begins to become much more attuned or more attentive to the stranger's voice than the parent's voice. And so they're much more readily influenced by that, or actually impacted by it. They're searching for that feedback. And then they're wanting to go to the unknown. What's out there to explore? I've known what my parents have told me, but what is out there? And start to think, I know more than my parents because I'm finding this out. They never told me about that, and never told me about this. Don't see that as a threat. See that as an opportunity to develop relationship and get to know this angst that the teen is wrestling with, of wanting to have a sense of competence, a sense of worth, a sense of belonging, a sense of autonomy. Big things for them developmentally from the time they're 12 to the time they're 19 or 20 when they're continuing to spread their wings. And I see many parents have insecurities drawn out at the time. They tend to become more controlling rather than going, oh, this is an opportunity to navigate this relationship. There's going to be conflict. How are we having healthy conflict rather than avoiding it or instead overpowering my child? And that's where those boundaries and limits get tricky. You become much more reactive, out of control, or become more passive because you're going, well, I don't know what to do. And so with that different temperament, there are different ways to put boundaries and limits with each child.
One of the themes I picked up through the book is that this parenting experience is as much about transforming us as it is about raising kids.
That is so true. That is so true. The transformation is real. It's beautiful. I remember, I vividly remember many points with my kids growing up where God was teaching me something through them. And we need to be ready for that. We need to have a teachable, humble heart as parents, that God is going to be speaking to us through our kids. I'll tell you one where I was my daughter. I usually call home when I'm going to go home from work. I call home. For a while I had a picture of my family right next to the light switch, knowing that when I turn the light off here at Focus on the Family, I am focusing on my family going home. And so began to shift my thoughts off that picture into, I wonder what's happening with Lexi, with Alex, with Heather, and how am I going to show up? And so this one day I called my wife's phone and my daughter answered. She was about 12, 13 years old. And she said, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" I said, "Hey, great." And she said, "We're going to do things differently today, Dad. When you come home, I'm going to be jumping in the air. You're going to catch me. I'll ask you soon." And she turned the phone on and go, what just happened? And she was learning aerial acrobatics at the time. So I was just imagining what is that going to be? She's going to be up in the air and what? So as I'm walking through the door from the garage, sure enough, she's coming around the corner up in the air. And then I had to drop what I had in my arms, and I just caught her. And she said, "Dad, you did it." And I remember the intensity of that. And I heard God speak. When those moments you feel God speaking to your soul, He said, "Do you trust me like that? Do you trust me like that?" It was a moment where I felt I was going. She jumped. She had confidence that I was gonna catch her, but there was an excitement and a love and a confidence that I was going to catch her. And he said, "Hey, do you trust me like that?" That has stood out in my mind. And we have so many of those with our kids. Make sure you're writing those down. You're taking snapshots in your mind of those, because your kids, there's no accident in that. They have their different temperaments and different things that are being brought to you as gifts as God continues to transform you into that identity as a child of God, as His child. And that continues into parenthood, and then as a grandparent, you have some new ones there. And when we get to heaven, that's when, right today, Dr. Dobson is getting to see this is what it means to be a child of God. This whole time on earth has been His molding and His shaping of His identity, and he got to see pieces of that as he lived in today. He got to realize, or on Thursday, he got to realize this realization entering heaven and saying, "Man, this is what it means. That this is what it all meant." And that's what I tell parents. This is one section, one season of time where you're learning more about who you are and getting shaped as you self-reflect on how you're reacting to certain things. What are your triggers? Do you really want those? When you feel certain things, do you have to respond that way, or could there be a better way to respond? And there's just a constant adjusting and learning that's taking place. And that's what the 7 traits are all about.
And I would say, having just graduated my youngest daughter from college, so my youngest child just graduated from college, of 7. So we had a good long span of parenting children at home, and it goes by so fast.
It does.
So some of the things that I think about a lot are, gee, I wish I knew that back then. And so if you're out there listening today, you're getting a lot of good wisdom to put into place today that you'll look back on and be thankful for. And speaking of thankfulness, before we get to gratitude, you had said that grace and forgiveness go together. And in this parenting journey, what does that mean?
Well, grace, you have to enter in with that first a lens of understanding as a parent. If you're going to model this trait of forgiveness, you have to have grace, because in relationship, when you're forgiving, you're having to bring empathy to the table. You're having to understand the other person. And that's grace, of having a care and a concern for that other person in front of you or people in front of you. And it's like building a bridge. You're having grace is that desire to build and to understand, how do I build the other part of the bridge on the other side so that this whole bridge connects? And then then there's that gift of forgiveness. So you forgive, those two words I talk about in the book, that it's truly a gift. Forgive, right? When you do a tag at Christmas time, this is for somebody. You're giving a piece of love and grace to that person that you are showing that to. And it begins with our spouses. Do you model grace towards your spouse? Are you ready to forgive your spouse as you guys try to model healthy conflict? It's interesting when I go speak on the 7 traits and other things for Focus on the Family. It is common. It is a common scenario that when I ask the question, how many of you guys have had a picture of healthy conflict? I get maybe 1, 2, 3 people out of 2, 3, 4, 500 people in the room. Only one to 3 people raise their hand that they got a model of healthy conflict. And it begins with grace and forgiveness. You enter in with a humble heart. And can you model that as spouses? Instead of avoiding any conflict in front of the kids, bring a healthy picture of what it means to have conflict and resolve that as husband and wife. And if you're a single parent, model that with other relationships, what it means to show grace and forgiveness. Kids are watching, and then bring that within your home, showing, especially with teens, grace, and knowing that a lot of what they're doing is not personal to you. They're trying to navigate having emotions on fire in their brain, and a brain that's not yet ready to handle a variety of pressures and emotions that are popping, and they're having to learn. And so grace is, they're learning. It's not personal. I'm going to forgive. Now I'm going to guide them. And that's key for parents to understand as they are in the day-to-day, maybe feeling like kids are doing things intentionally, especially the teenagers that maybe are getting moody or other things are happening. It's important for parents not to take it personally, but to show up with that grace and the forgiveness. It helps them go to that gratitude reset that is so needed for their mind.
Well, in the last chapter, you write, gratitude is the ability to appreciate what you have rather than agonize about what you don't have.
Yeah, in the last couple months, I've been really parking in gratitude, because our son got married here in July, and then our daughter now is in college. We went from our full nest to an empty nest, and I've been reflecting on the remember whens and just with gratitude. But I do remember early as a dad, as I was holding my son and holding my daughter, I had learned about this practice in my own private practice, telling parents, hey, research says, and then I was experiencing this now as a dad, that just feeling the sense of gratitude and then verbally saying, I am thankful for you, or I'm thankful for this, helps you actually see and recognize and process what you actually do have. And it changes the way you're responding. It switches your brain from the negative side to the positive. And when that happens, it changes your attitude, which changes your belief about what's in front of you, the situation, which changes the way you think about something or you assess it, which changes how you feel about things, which changes how you behave about something. And so gratitude truly is something that infuses a whole different change in the whole chain of how you're going to act or react to your kids. And so one discipline that I started with early in my parenting was, hey Lord, thank you for today. We get to unwrap it. It's like a gift that I'm getting to unwrap. Let's get, with anticipation and curiosity, looking for what does the day have? I get to breathe today. Thank you so much. And with that, that transformed me as a person on how I was approaching, not perfectly, right? This was the intent, and this was the discipline I was trying to pursue. And in that, I also tried my best to think about one thing I can do each day to make the day better for my kids and for my wife. It wasn't about me. It was about what's one little thing. But whether it's a smile, and I go to them, I go, man, I love you. I would die for you. I need you to know that today. Or a hug, or a note, a written note, or a note on their mirror, or just helping them with. I remember my son in high school. He was playing basketball and all that, and I said, "Son, I know you're busy. Your chore is doing the dishes. You look exhausted. How about I do that for you today? I want to give that gift to you. I'll take that on you. You need rest. You need to regroup for tomorrow." And that's a moment where you say that's a one thing, but that's with we can start off with a grateful heart with what we've got, because then it helps us steward that rather than try to own it. When you think about things that you don't have or you're losing, you try to own it and control it. The other way is I get to steward this. I get to steward relationships. I get to steward being a dad or a mom. I get to steward my marriage. I get to steward my home. This is about stewardship. And God has entrusted me in that. And he said, who I'm looking for is a person that is humble and contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. That's what he's looking for. That's how we need to show up as parents. And if we do that, we will find wisdom in the moments. We will find the energy we need, and we will be teachable. And the 7 traits is all about how can you continually be teachable and learn and see every day as an opportunity for learning and growing.
Yeah, so the book isn't a formula. If you do these 7 things, you will be a successful parent. It's a lot more focused on what you just said, being transformed into the person that God wants you to be in relationship with your spouse and your children.
That's right, and grandparents can do this as well.
Oh, don't give me that.
Yes,
I'm done.
Yes, this could be.
No, I'm done. I've got 7 grandchildren now too. Are you saying I got to do this all over again?
All over again,
oh,
man. You get to do all the. So I just did a talk, and I showed everybody all the different exercises that we put in there to make it practical. This is a practical book that you can go back to and say, hey, I'm going to try this, or I'm going to try that. And I wanted to load it up with exercises that I used over the past 2 decades as I've counseled families, which ones have worked, which ones have been transforming to families. And I wanted to make sure to include them in the book. Easy to apply, very practical, and grandparents and parents can be doing it. And one thing parents can do if you're going to give a gift to your kids is encourage them and ask them, how can I be of help? Instead of telling them what they need to do, just say, hey, you're doing the best, man, the best you can. I know you're probably super tired. How can I be of help?
Well, Danny, it's been great talking to you. Where can people find your book?
Come to Focus on the Family. FocusOnTheFamily.com/parenting is a good place to start. And you can start with that assessment and then go with the book after that. There have been many, many people that have been doing this as kind of a just show up book club that they start. And so they each buy the book, they put the audio on at 1.5, they follow along, and they begin to apply the exercises and just have discussion. No one really has to do homework. They just do the exercises, talk about how it's going. And the idea with this is you are forming a community of parents. That's so key as well. Trying the same thing and learning from one another. And the key word here is, hey, let every day have an opportunity for growth for you. And as you do so, come to Focus on the Family. We've got age and stage content for you. We want to send you things. And one place you can go for that one, Jim, I'm just going to add this one in, is mykidsage.com. And if you sign up on there, mykidsage.com, you get content sent to you that's specific to each of the ages of your kids.
Well, that's terrific. Focus on the Family played a large role in my early parenting years, especially. And then, they invented the internet, and so I stopped listening to the radio. But it's a great resource, the website, and we actually, call you guys for help every once in a while when we run into some tricky kind of counseling sorts of things. So thanks again.
And that's a free call, Jim, on our counseling line. The counseling line here, Focus on the Family, it's a free call. So if you are in that stuck place with your teen or your family or your marriage, call us. Give us a call. 1-800-232-6459 or 1-800-A-FAMILY. That's Jim. That's what you're talking about. There are counselors waiting there. They'll talk to you, and it's free.
The only thing I take issue with is I have to keep doing this with my grandkids. Are you serious?
Jim, you got it, man. They need you. Yes, yes. Love your personality, man. You've got gifts to bring them. Yes.
Well, so my guest today has been Dr. Daniel Huerta, who is the Vice President of Parenting and Youth.
And my home, yeah.
And of your home at Focus on the Family. Thanks again, Daniel. And this has been another episode of Homeschool Talks, where I get to talk to interesting people about things of interest to homeschooling parents especially. If you enjoyed this episode, send it on to your friends. You can sign up to get these episodes dropped straight into your email account when they're released. We do want to take just a moment once again to remember Dr. James Dobson and all of the great things he did over the years and the millions of folks that he helped and influenced. And if you're not a member of HSLDA, we think you should be. We hope you want to be. And if you are inclined to, you can come to our website at hslda.org. Help us to protect and advance homeschool freedom. Thanks again, Danny.
That's great. Thanks, Jim. It's been an honor, man.
Every week, HSLDA hears from hundreds of homeschool families, many of whom are facing hostility from school officials or discrimination from colleges and employers. We've helped single parents facing criminal charges for homeschooling their children, families traumatized by wrongful CPS investigations, and even a grandmother harassed by the state for homeschooling her granddaughter. By donating to HSLDA, you can help make homeschooling possible for families like these and enable our work to preserve freedom for future generations. Give today at hslda.org/donate. That's hslda.org/donate. Thanks for listening to this episode of Homeschool Talks. If you've enjoyed this conversation, will you do us a favor by sharing it with a friend or leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts? As a reminder, you can find show notes for this episode along with our other Homeschool Talks conversations at hslda.org/podcast. And if you want to be the first to know about new episodes, as well as upcoming guests and topics, you can sign up for our email list using the link in the show notes. That's all for now. We hope you enjoyed this program, and we'll see you next time.